Zenkai Awakening. Originally introduced into Dragon Ball Legends on December 11th, 2019. Zenkai Awakening in the current landscape of Dragon Ball Legends boosts older units, so they can be placed on the bench of your team to help boost newer, more modern units, depending on their element factor, tag, episode, and rarity. However, there's a reason why Zenkai Awakening is the way that it is now. The original point of Zenkai Awakening was to power up older units to make them viable in the meta again. I mean, just imagine if Zenkai Deborah of all units was genuinely good. Well, there are two units to blame for the complete 180 of the Zenkai Awakening system. The reason why some of our favorite units from the past just don't shine in this current landscape of Dragon Ball Legends after getting a Zenkai Awakening. One unit that helped kickstart the end of the original Zenkai Awakening concept is Yellow Sparking Android 18. This unit was an absolute monster. At the time, the Android tag was fairly solid, especially because of the release of Revival Cell, giving the tag a good defensive option. Blue LF Vegito Blue was the best unit in the game at the time, but once Android 18 got her Zenkai Awakening, that all started to change. She dealt devastating damage, completely unfitting of any sparking unit. If she had a Strike Arts card, you were in danger. Plus, since Strike Arts was her forte, and the Blue LF Vegito Blue special cover change was for Blast Arts, you pretty much had no way to stop her overwhelming onslaught. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, why not just use a red unit against her? Red units are strong against yellow units. You'd think that general concept would apply to her, but her damage output was so ridiculous that even if you brought in a red unit against her, she would still delete them as if red units were weak against yellow units. She was an absolute force to be reckoned with at the time, and it made it to the point where if you didn't have her on your Android team, you straight up did not have the Android team. Plus, during that time in Dragon Ball Legends history, you were only able to cover change once, meaning you had to be extremely careful who you threw in while being comboed, because if you threw in the wrong unit, they were stuck in until the entire combo was over, and would be 100% locked in for a rising rush. So imagine the threat of only being able to cover change once per onslaught, and knowing that red units mean absolutely nothing to yellow Zenkai Android 18. Her reign of terror really frustrated a lot of Dragon Ball Legends players at the time. However, that's only one piece of the puzzle. What if I were to tell you that there was a unit even more dangerous than her? A unit so devastatingly powerful that all logic concerning Dragon Ball Legends literally never applied to them. This Zenkai Awakening was so broken that they were the absolute, undisputed king of Dragon Ball Legends for over a year. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Red Zenkai LF Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. Now, you guys know me. Super Saiyan 2 Team Gohan is my favorite character in all of Dragon Ball, but this Zenkai Awakening form was absolutely ridiculous. His Zenkai Awakening also came during the reign of Blue LF Vegito Blue. However, that meant absolutely nothing to him. Where Yellow Zenkai Android 18 was a monster who specialized in Strike Arts, Red Zenkai LF Super Saiyan 2 Gohan was an absolute demon who specialized in Blast Arts. What I'm about to say, I mean in the most serious and literal way possible. If you breathed, it was over. The damage output of this unit was so broken that any and all element factors didn't mean anything to him. Blue, red, yellow, green, purple, light, and dark. It didn't matter. If he had his sights locked on you, you were done for. Not to mention, this unit was the absolute definition of a one-man army. This Gohan got last man standing buffs that were so powerful that 1v3s were a complete joke to him. He had the firepower to steamroll anything in his path. And adding the fact of his Zenkai releasing in the exact same meta as Yellow Zenkai Android 18 meant that if you cover changed a unit against him, you were content with them getting completely and utterly eviscerated. Pretty much, this was the only unit in Dragon Ball Legends history where if you didn't have him on your team, you were guaranteed to lose in PvP. And the cherry on top? His ultimate arts as last man standing was more often than not a guaranteed LF, regardless of how much health your opponent had or what element factor they were. It truly was a nightmare that we experienced back then, and is often regarded as one of the worst metas in Dragon Ball Legends history. So far, I've talked about how strong each of their Zenkai Awakenings were, But the real kicker is when each of their Zenkai Awakenings released. Gohan's Zenkai Awakening released on September 2nd, 2020, and Android 18's Zenkai Awakening released on September 9th, 2020. Did you catch that? These Zenkai Awakenings released within the span of 7 days. So within the span of a week, we got two of the strongest units in Legends history, with practically no counterplay to their damage output. Endurance, revival, it meant absolutely nothing to these two. If you were in their way, you were going down. Of course, power creep is a thing, and eventually, it did catch up to both Gohan and Android 18. But it was a slow burn up until that point, especially for Gohan. He was, and still is, the only unit in Dragon Ball Legends history to hold the title of the #1 best unit in the entire game for over a year. Now, he's been power crept by newer units with more modern abilities. But even with these newer modern units power creeping Gohan, none of them have ever dominated Dragon Ball Legends for anywhere near as long as he did. Not even any of the Ultra units that have released since that point in time have lasted as long in the meta as the best unit in the game for as long as he did. Again, he was the undisputed king of Dragon Ball Legends for a reason. And to be honest, I don't think that there's ever going to be a newer unit that releases in Dragon Ball Legends that will ever take that title from Red Zenkai LF Super Saiyan 2 Gohan ever again. And now, whenever we get a new Zenkai Awakening for an older unit, it's met with skepticism. There are some Zenkai units that truly are good, and then there are others that make you question why they were even considered for one. But even with those extremely rare circumstances of exceptional Zenkai units that appear from time to time, the general notion of Zenkai units completely replacing newer units is gone now. Now I will admit, using these units in their prime was fun, but it came at a major cost. Because of how irrefutably broken those two Zenkai Awakenings were, the Dragon Ball Legends devs decided to tone down the power boost, because at that point, the player base realized, why summon for new units when these Zenkais are stronger than everything else? Nowadays, Zenkai units are just delegated to the bench, to be seen as nothing more than an extra boost for the newer, stronger units. Where there are tons of people who are excited to potentially see some of their favorite older units get a power boost through Zenkai Awakening in the future, others only see it as a way to make other units on their team stronger. And in a sense, that means that the Dragon Ball Legends team achieved their goal with the new vision for Zenkai Awakening. The landscape of PvP was poisoned, and the validity of newer units were questioned, and that caused the Dragon Ball Legends devs to repurpose the concept of Zenkai Awakening. It really is unfortunate that units that got a Zenkai Awakening after those two, and even leading up to now and beyond, will never be as strong as Super Saiyan 2 Gohan and Android 18. But for the overall betterment of the game, it was a necessary change to maintain the game's integrity.